On a Pennsylvania train, a woman was raped, and nobody intervened, and nobody called the police. Shalom, this is Fallen Yeshua. Welcome again to the Rock. See, this story says multiple things to me, and I know a lot of people may not agree with what I'm about to say, but I'm about to say it anyways. In today's time, things are getting so bad, and it's getting bad everywhere. Crime is happening, and people are becoming very emboldened, and sin is abounding. But here's what I'm finding most interesting. One, a lot of people aren't doing anything about it anymore. Men have gotten past the point of trying to be a superhero. Men aren't trying to intervene in other situations that don't involve them. And in reality, men are trying to get home, back to their families. You know, you see things like that happen, and before people used to stand up. But now, with the way things are going in this world, you stand up and you may end up not going home to your family. So a lot of men are just kind of like, well, I'll get home to my family. Now, it's not even called 911. Ugh. That just goes to show you things are breaking down faster than you think. Number two, I've talked about this multiple times. I don't know if the woman was married or not. But women in this, I'll be all right doing it by myself. I have no protection, no covering, no nothing, but I'm just going to hop on this train. You know, there's a taking for granted, you know, that we're just going to do what we normally did as if times are normal, as if times aren't falling apart. I'm just going to do what I've normally done and things are going to be okay. You know, and I see that even amongst those in this faith, believers, who are failing to see what is going on in this world, and they go on as if things are normal. They do their normal things. They do their normal shoppings. They go to their normal places, and they do it as if everything's okay. And it's not. There are people out there, sick-ass people out there right now, who are looking for a victim. This is why Yah had it and had his system a particular way. This is why he did it. This is why he said women be covered. Get married. Guide the house. Have children. See, it's easier to identify a threat when you're out here on your property, away from the cities, away from the suburbs, away from everything, basically, just out here. It's easier to identify a threat. It's hard to identify a threat when you're in a building, when you're in especially for you sisters, when you're on a train and you're around a bunch of people, when you're in a store walking down an aisle, because you're bumping up against other people, you're next to other people, and that person that's next to you could be that threat. And because a lot of sisters today walk around without operational security or security awareness, they have no immediate response. They don't even have protection because you live in one of these reservations that tell you that you can't own a firearm. You have no husband that is telling you and teaching you how to protect yourself, what to do, what to look for. He hasn't given you a plan. So your plan is literally, as much as you say, we need to come out of her, we need to be, separate, and I trust in Yah. Your number one defense mechanism is 911, or hoping that some other man puts his life at risk to save yours. The old paths get better. I mean, if you look at really what is going on in this world right now, the sin, the crime, the shortages, I have a video about fertilizer, Yah willing, coming out tomorrow morning. They're saying that because of the lack of fertilizer that's out there, the food shortage is going to extend well beyond next year. There's no nitrogen, but they're short in potash, greatly short. Farmers are reporting that they are greatly short in potash, which means your stores are going to have smaller fruits, smaller vegetables, and there's going to be less of it because the farming industry relies heavily on these fertilizers that are produced and created. But all these things are happening, and yet the old paths still sit right there, as the Bible says. See, in the old paths, sisters, you'd be at home taking care of your children that you had with your husband. You wouldn't be having to hit it. Gotta make my money. Because out there right now, there are sick-ass men and sick-ass women. Because nobody called on the train. And there wasn't just men on the train. There were women on the train. And nobody stepped up. Nobody intervened. Everybody kept their head down. So you can't just say, this is a men issue. No. Nobody called 911. I'm sure that the women on the train had cell phones also. Men are usually the ones that stepped in. But everybody now is at that point where like, listen, I'm trying to get home. People understand how sick it is out there. And the old past would have had your ass at home, taking care of your children. Instead, you out and about running, either going to work, running back home from work, going to school, going back home from school, as if everything in this world's okay. As if everything is just, you know what, it didn't happen to me, so I'm not worried about it, right? Things are all good until it happens to you. We neglect and forsake the warnings. We neglect and forsake Yah's way of doing things until we get to a point where those things happen to us, and then we're crying out, why aren't the men doing something about this? Well, those men that you're talking about, they're moving their families out. You telling me you're depending on heathen men to save you? You're depending on men who don't know or understand Yah's law to save you? There is saving. The Bible tells you how to. It tells you get married. Guide the house. Get a covering. Submit to him. That's what it says. I can tell you a lot of men today whose wives are out of this system, who are married and have come out of her. Tell you, those wives don't have to worry about that. They're at home guiding the house, armed with a protocol to know what happens if certain things happen, what to do, how to respond. And your idea is, I'm just going to pray about it. As the system falls apart around you, I'm just going to pray about it. Read Maccabees chapter 1 and 2. Read all throughout the Bible where people left, people fled. You got to get your mind right. You got to actually get to a point where you believe what that book says. Because as crime, one of the biggest outputs of what this is happening in this society, in this economy, is crime. We said it. It literally is turning, in our live streams we've said it. It literally is turning to purge-like conditions. People don't care. And even if they get caught, people don't care. There's all sorts of sickness happening in this world, all sorts of wickedness, all sorts of sin happening. And Yah said, if you don't want to partake of the plagues, separate from these people. Separate from these areas. I ain't trying to be separate. Because it's going to require me to change my life too much. I'm making good money. Well, everybody's going to eat the fruit of their ways. The fruit of your doings. Everybody is going to eat. And for a lot of people, while it doesn't affect you now, as this thing continues to fall apart, it's going to affect you more and more and more. It's going to get closer and closer and closer to home. I pray and I hope that the word becomes real to you. Because you will find rest for your soul in the old paths. These new paths are going to be a destruction. Coming out of her is the answer. Separating yourself from Egypt is the answer. Not sitting in Egypt and asking Yah to place, an armed guard. I'm looking for a husband to save me while I choose to sit in my current location. I want to find somebody that's going to sit here with me, but yet try to make a plan to protect me. And men, listen, get home to your families. Y'all got to separate too. This is not well, sister, you got to separate, because men, you got to separate. And a lot of y'all don't want to. Because you're just as dependent on Egypt and its ways. Hope this hits somebody. Read your local news. Listen to what's going on in this world. And ask yourselves, why are you still sitting there? Yah has clearly given us a way to live and a way to be in his law. For a lot of the law, if you read it, a lot of the law only works, sisters, brothers, when you're around family and you're able to have fellowship with other brethren around you. It doesn't work when you sit stuck. It's hard to enact a lot of these laws when you're stuck dead smack in the middle of Chicago, Houston, LA. In an apartment, you're going to try to tell somebody, don't move my landmark. How's that going to work out? When a person's kicking in your door, lawless, and seeks to do you harm. When you're riding on a train, surrounded by a bunch of lawless people, when you were told to be separate, that's what holy means, set apart. And that's not just in the mind and in the heart and in the spirit. That means physically. That's really telling me something when you want to set yourself apart in the mind, in the heart, and spiritually, yet you won't make the physical move. First, that which is natural, then that which is spiritual. Faith without works is dead. Belief without the physical works is dead. So what does that say about that set apart, separate in the mind and in the heart and in the spirit? If it ain't done physically, maybe you truly ain't set apart. Bless y'all. Shalom.